You go to Nigeria.
In my judgment.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen.
Right, as from the first clip you've seen, we're going to be reacting to this very heated interview between Louis Farrakhan and Mike Wallace. Now guys, keep in mind that this is an interview that occurred or happened during the 1990s, right? And in this interview, Louis Farrakhan is gonna be placing the mirror in front of this journalist, and he's gonna be asking him very difficult questions as he brings forward very important points that he's trying to show him. Yeah,
right. And you know, more often than not, journalists usually want to land a point when they ask certain question, and more often than not, they don't usually expect hard-hitting answers the way Farrakhan is gonna be dishing it out to this white man. Why am I saying this? This was in 1996 when Farrakhan was telling this journalist that if white and black people cannot get along, it's high time that black people should be separated from white people and white people to mind their own business. And it is 2026 and we still hear black Americans emphasize the same thing. If white people are not going to give black Americans peace, it is better for them to leave black people alone than keep on being racist and antagonizing black people. But guys, what are we talking about? Let's watch what we've prepared for you today and then you come back and talk about it. You can also let us know what you think about this episode down in the comment section and consider subscribing if you're new to our channel. Let's watch.
If I went to Israel, I don't think Israel would be the best place for me to be at this time, considering the view that most Jews have of Louis Farrakhan.
You go to Nigeria, which is, if not the most corrupt nation in Africa. It is the most corrupt nation that I have ever covered. I've been there 25 years ago. I've been there. You can't go. On hand. Yes, there's corruption. Yes, there's mismanagement of resources. Yes, there's abuse. Oh, let's talk about that question. Yes. When it comes to in my judgment, I didn't mean to be so fired. No, that's good. That's good.
That's my passion.
I first recognized the passion of the black Muslim movement and Louis Farrakhan way back in 1959 when I anchored a broadcast entitled The Hate That Hate Produced. The black Muslim meeting we filmed included a mock trial, a kind of passion play, where the white man was judged for crimes against the black race. The voice you will hear is that of the prosecutor.
This tape will show you why white America was worried about the black Muslims.
I charge the white man, ladies ladies and gentlemen of the jury, with being the greatest murderer on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest peacemaker on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest adulterer on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest troublemaker on earth. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask you, bring back a verdict of guilty as charged.
I'm sure you remember that. You wrote it.
Yes.
And you
Well-
believed that then.
Oh, yes, I believe it now. History is not false. If he says that the white man did all these things, I did not write the white man's history. That history is written in murder, in the bloodshed of the darker peoples of the world, and even in the bloodshed of your own people.
Do you still believe in separation of the races?
I believe, Mike, that if we can't get along in peace, then we should separate. We have serious differences that are exacerbated now over time between black and white. The question that we have to answer, are those differences irreconcilable?
Are they?
I don't know. Have we tried as hard as we could to reconcile them? And if we have, and we cannot, then separation would be the best answer.
You are suggesting that it's basically the white man's fault.
Oh, no, Mr. Wallace. I'm not going to say that. Because justice would not be served if I said it was all the fault of white people.
Reason that
we have to take some blame in this ourselves. As black people, we can't sit around waiting for white people to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves. And our failure to do this is our fault. White folk have done bad by us in the past. Yes, that is true. And they do some bad by us today. But if we did better by ourselves today, we could help to reconcile this difference.
He withdrew to the Nation of Islam's compound in Phoenix, Arizona. He disappeared from the public eye for almost 3 months. Then he reemerged for that tour of Africa and the Middle East. To observers like Dr. C. Eric Lincoln, a distinguished black historian and professor emeritus at Duke University, who has studied the Nation of Islam since the 1950s, Farrakhan's trip squandered a great opportunity. Professor Lincoln told me
He was disgusted with your trip to the Middle East and to Africa. He said, he blew it, you. After the Million Man March, he feels that you had what you were after. You had put yourself in the position as a leader of the entire black community in America, which you had never had before. And then that you just threw it away with the trip to Africa.
No.
Now, this is from a man,
Yes.
scholar, and a guest in your home,
Yes.
loves you and your wife.
And I love him. Let me say this. There are many people like Dr. Lincoln who think just like that. They were hurt because they watched my struggle. And they said, now he has arrived, okay?
Right.
And they felt not only that I had arrived for me, I had arrived for them because secretly they have wanted to embrace Louis Farrakhan. And just as they were about to put their arms around me, I went to Africa and the Middle East. And to quote them, I blew it.
You spoke, in their view, against your own country.
You know, some of your best patriots are those who never went along with the government position. Listen, everyone that stepped back from me, they didn't run away. They're behind a tree, looking. Is he going to make it? How's he going to get out of this one? Oh, my God, I'm not a politician. I don't do what people think I should do. I do what God inspires me to do. Which one of these leaders would have asked me to call for 1 million men to come to Washington? Not one. That was an inspiration from God that I followed, and they all applauded. Great thing you did. God inspired me to get up and leave this country, and before long, those same critics will say, I was wrong, Farrakhan.
I want to show you now, Minister Farrakhan, an excerpt from your speech, Savior's Day in Chicago.
I know you want to kill me, but I just raised the price. You want me dead, you're going to pay a price to get that result.
Who wants to kill you? Why?
I believe that conversation is raging right now in government circles because I appear to be interfering with America's foreign policy objectives in Africa and in the Middle East. They want me kind of silenced or muzzled, and if they can destroy my credibility, as they did Martin Luther King first, take him down in the eyes of his people and then assassinate him. I don't believe that America is beyond that. I believe it's being discussed right now in the White House. I believe it's being discussed by certain members of Congress. How are you going to deal with Farrakhan? Yes, I presented you with a dilemma, but I'm warning America. I'm not Martin Luther King. I'm not Malcolm X. I'm in a little different time frame. And I think you would be wise to see if God is with me. And if God is with me, you would be well to leave me alone.
So guys, welcome back. Just as I said in the beginning, this is one phrase that was being said since time immemorial, right? Because this is an interview that was conducted in 1996, and up until right now, just as I said in the beginning, Black Americans are telling white people, if you're not gonna be at peace with us, it's better if people should separate and live on their own, right? And this does not mean that Black Americans do not want white people. Their only condition is if you're gonna keep the peace between the two of us. And there is something that we usually like saying here on this channel, and I'm also still gonna repeat it again, right? And that is that once an aggressor stops aggravating a certain situation, the conflict between those two people will end. But if an aggressor keeps doing the same thing and expecting different results, for example, like in this speech here, if racists keep being racist to Black Americans and expect Black Americans to give them peace, it's not gonna happen, not in today's world.
Right, and we also look at the speech where he was talking about white people, and he said everything that white people was, right? This was back in 1996. He talked about white people being the troublemakers. He talked about white people being the adulterers. And I feel like that got me, and I feel like that needs more expounding. And guys, let's even just go back to the days when slavery used to be a thing, right? These people would literally grape people's families, people's mothers, people's sisters, just because they felt like that was their property and they were entitled to treating them in whatever way. And remember, the person who did this was someone who was married with a full-blown family, right? So if you talk about habits that people keep on practicing, these habits lead to culture, right? And a lot of the things you look at right now, we normally say history informs the present and the present will inform the future. So you only have to look at the behavior people are portraying right now and how they engage with each other, be it in a marriage institution, be it in friendships, be it in the workplaces, and you have to look at the history of how they used to relate with other people, right? If you talk about white people being troublemakers, that does not mean in any way, shape, or form that Black people aren't troublemakers, right? But you look at the dynamics in which, in how they relate with other people. Let's say, for example, even at workplaces, Black women have often come out on the internet to talk about how just unprovoked they would do something and white people would react in a certain way, right? And I know a lot of white people might be looking at such videos and saying that, because they don't understand their own history, right? Then they might think that Black Americans like to complain about them for no reason. But if you look at what the Black American community is saying, and then you look at how the white American community behaves and reacts towards this, a lot can be explained just by looking at the history the two share,
Right. And I feel like it's also important to address another issue that the journalist brought up to Louis Farrakhan, right? And he was trying to prove to Louis Farrakhan that Nigeria in Africa is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. First of all, guys, we need to debunk this brick by brick. And it is true Nigeria is very corrupt, but it is also true that not only Nigeria, but also other countries in Africa are very, very corrupt. But does that mean that United States is not corrupt? Does that mean that countries in Europe are not corrupt? Does that mean that countries in Asia are not corrupt? No. But what we are not also going to defend is that Nigeria is not corrupt. It is corrupt, right? But Louis Farrakhan asked the journalist a very important question. Instead of accusing Nigeria of being corrupt, what are the measures you're going to take to help this country get ahead? If there are no measures you're going to take to help this country get ahead, why don't you move aside so that those of us who are in the Black community who are willing to help this country move ahead can go there and do so in peace, right? And also he brought up a very, very important point. Why are these countries in Africa corrupt in the first place? Who is designing this situation to be like this? Because it's not just coincidental that African countries are living the way they are living. It is by design. Because there's a very famous clip of another person. I don't remember his name. He was speaking and he was giving all the reasons why African countries can never be allowed to move ahead by Western countries, because it is them being messed up like this that are helping the Western countries to get ahead and fulfill their goals. Most importantly, because there are some important and crucial minerals that Western countries get from African countries, and because of that they can never allow these countries to grow, because if they allow these countries to grow, then these countries will know the value of their minerals and they will start charging the value of their minerals as it should, and maybe Western countries will not be able to afford all these minerals as they are affording them right now.
Right, let me just paint a scenario for you guys, right? Because it takes two parties for corruption to occur, right? So if you find African governments that are corrupt, where are they getting the money to allow them to commit those indecent acts? It's because there's someone somewhere who's willing and able to pay for some illegal services or illicit transaction in order for that corruption to even keep on being funneled, And when you look at, it's just like looking at a situation where an armed robbery has occurred, right? Let's say, for example, I participate in an armed robbery. It doesn't matter if I'm not the one with the people going into the bank to rob. There's somebody who plays that part, right? I'm just but a getaway driver. So
the helper of the thieves.
The helper of the thieves, right? My crime is way, way less, but I'm still in that group, right? I drive to the location, they go commit robbery, and then come back, I drive them away. Should we be arrested? Am I going to be forgiven and told, just go home because, you didn't rob? No, of course not. We are all going to be charged as a unit, only that we might get different prison sentences. Why am I saying that? You cannot accuse Africa of being corrupt. Is America blameless, like a very pure white angel, to a point where you can say America has never committed corruption, to a point where you can say the leaders within the American government can never ever be corrupt, because they are white and they are in a first world country. These people are incapable of committing crime. I can assure you and I can guarantee you, I can stand on a high pedestal and say and claim with my full chest, I can never ever stand on saying that, there's a country, even one on this planet Earth, that is not corrupt. Every country is corrupt. The degree might vary, but every country on Earth is corrupt, because you also look at America. They say don't point a finger out to others others, pointing their own mistakes, and you've not addressed your own. Being that we are all humans, it doesn't matter if you live in South Korea, it doesn't matter if you live in South Africa, it doesn't matter if you live on the Western Hemisphere or the Eastern Hemisphere. What matters is we are all human beings. We might have different cultures, but bottom line, we are all human beings. We all have red blood going through our veins. That being said, they normally say human is to error, and I can assure you the same error that is allowed to happen in Africa is the same error happening in American governments. Because you're human, you can never pass off a good opportunity should someone come and say, you know what, I can give you this kickback for this and this, provided you provide me this service. So I do believe that Louis Farrakhan handled this well.
Right. And some may say that, why is it that if black countries, especially in Africa, white journalists try to bring out their evil, we start sympathizing with these countries and say, but even America does this, even America does that. Why is it that you don't take the same accord when it comes to the law of separation that Louis Farrakhan was talking about, when he said that white people should separate from black people if they're not willing to stay in peace with black people? And my answer would be this. These two situations are completely different in that both America and Africa practices corruption. As Maren said, it might be at different levels, but it's still corruption nonetheless. But when it comes to racism, who has the power to conduct these racist behaviors towards another person to a degree where they refuse housing or job opportunities for those people? Can black people also practice the same amount of racism with the amount of power white people practice it with? And that is where the difference comes in. And that is where white people must change. It's not a question of asking them to change, but it is a matter of telling them to change, because at the end of the day, racism occurs because there are not two participants. It's only one person who's been doing it since time immemorial, and right now black Americans are still asking for the same thing Louis Farrakhan asked for in 1996.
Right. So guys, let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time here, and we'll catch you on our next episode as usual. Lorna, thank you so much for always tuning in.